Guys, welcome to another week of What's the Word podcast back in the studio per usual is my boy Trev. Trev, how you feeling, buddy?
Feeling great.
Feeling great. Trev was here right on time today at 11:30. Solid work, bud. Solid work. We're ready to record, ready to get going. And today is a fun topic. Today is evidence in the title. The question, is it wrong to want money? Is it wrong to want money? Cash money, Trev. Cash money. Is it wrong
I hope
to
not.
desire it? Trev, talk to me about money. Talk to me about your experience with money. Have you always been a guy? Have you ever been a person who's like, I want a ton of money? Or were you growing up, were you kind of like, I don't really care? I mean, this is kind of like you're really like a year into your first career, big boy job. I mean, when you were looking towards your career, did you ever think, no, I want to make it a certain amount, I want to be rich, or did you not really care?
I really wanted to be rich. That was probably like, I wouldn't say I wanted to be rich for like a bad reason necessarily. But with my childhood, I'd say like early on in my life, up until like junior high, I was, we never really like struggled when it came to money. Like lived in a decent house in a good neighborhood, and parents would come home and buy me toys. Like I would say we were pretty well off when it came to money. But then there was kind of this shift in my life to where all of that went away, and it was like just me and my mom in an apartment. Thankfully still an apartment, obviously, right? But like never wanted to ask my mom for money to go to McDonald's with my friends or anything, because it's just like struggled. It was kind of like a struggle with money. So that fueled me to be like, okay, I want to make a ton of money with my career so that I can provide for my kids and so that they won't have to go through like the struggles that I had to go through, especially when you see other people with like tons of money in school.
Yeah. True. Yeah, I feel like I had a similar upbringing to, I think similar in regards to like what you went through on the second half of things.
Yeah.
Because, I had a single mom, and growing up, we didn't really have much. And I think, I don't know, it like drove me to want money.
Yeah.
It was weird. It's like a combination, and maybe some of you guys listening are kind of like this, is like if you didn't have a lot of money growing up, you learned to be content, but you also felt called to like do better than that when you got older. And that was kind of me, to where I it's interesting that I felt like I wanted a lot of money growing up, because I don't know. I'm really a simple guy, and I learned to be a simple dude just as a result of not having much money, and like enjoying the simple things in life, the free things in life, and all that stuff.
You're almost thankful for the struggle because it helped you become content. But at the same time, you're like, well, I don't want someone else, my kids to have to go through that.
Absolutely. And it's a big desire too. I like coming up through college and stuff. Obviously I'm in ministry now, but I think that went into a lot of, I think that was a big reason. And we talked about it on the career episode last week. And if you haven't heard that episode, go check it out. But talked about it on the career episode because I almost went and did like the corporate world, business thing, sales. And a big driver of that was my desire to want money, like to be rich, to have tons of money, to live comfortably, or whatever you want to call that, right? Yeah. And I think in this episode, we're going to wrestle with, like, is that wrong? Because that's something that I wrestle with. Like, is it wrong to want all this money? Is it because I was a Christian and I love Jesus, but I also wanted to be like super, super rich, and I preferred not to be poor. And so for you guys listening, we'll jump into a little bit of this, and I'll give, some more anecdotes there, and Trevor, I'm sure, will as well. But off the top, money should be a tool to be used to build. Money should be and can be a tool to be used to build the kingdom, but can also be a temptation that takes us off the path God has provided for us. One more time for you guys. Money could and should be a tool to be used to build the kingdom, but it also can be a temptation that takes us off the path that God has provided for us. And that's a danger with it too, Trevor, is like wealth is like fire. Fire obviously can, heat up your meals on the stove. Just cook some eggs in there. It can cook you a nice steak. It can keep you warm at night, but can also, destroy wildlife, houses, and anything in its path. Fire is a neutral thing, but can become a negative thing when it's not in the correct context. So we don't have it in the proper bounds that God has it to be. So I want to ask you, like, what are some of the problems with being like money hungry, right? Because the Bible talks about, some people misinterpret and misconstrue this verse. The root of evil is the love of money, not money in and of itself. So we know it's a love and over infatuation with having and gaining wealth is a problem. But money in itself is like fire, right? It's neutral. It's not negative in and of itself, but can become that way. But what do you think? Like, how do you think money can become negative in somebody's life?
I think it's your intentions of why you want to have a lot of money. Like if it's to build up your status, because if you have more money, then you could buy more things and people will like you more because you have all these things, then there might be an issue with your heart going on there. Also, like if you have this desire just to gain a bunch of things without a willingness to give back as well. There can be an issue there with like what's the real reason you want all this money? Like, is it genuinely because you want to provide and you want to have like good experiences? Like, I don't think it's wrong inherently to want to have money so you can go take a vacation with your family, right? That isn't wrong in and of itself. But like, if you're wanting to have all this money so you can have the best truck and the best clothes so that you look better than everybody else, and like people want to hang out with you because you have all this money, then I feel like there's something going on in your heart to say like, why do you really want this? Like, it's not the money that you want, it's the attention that you want. Oh yeah, it's the approval of other people that you want.
It's sad because we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to impress people we don't even like.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. I don't know. I think people have like these visions and these whims to have a nice car, have a nice truck, have a nice house, have whatever toy that you can imagine in your life that would offer you some sort of prestige. And I think it's interesting. Like, okay, so an illustration. I drive a 2009 Toyota Camry, and I've had my Camry for a minute. Like, man, it's probably been at least like almost 7 or 8 years. It's been a long time. But anyways, honestly, people look at it now and think, oh, that thing's a hunk of junk. Like, that Camry's horrible. But when I first got it, it was a relatively like nice car. Like, when I went and bought that thing, it was, man, oh my gosh, this is my first like nice car purchase. This is the first car I'm like going to spend a lot of money on. You kind of have a car like that now. Like, that your car is your nice car now.
It's my off-brand Tesla.
Absolutely. But something that's interesting now is, so when I had that car initially, I would park in the back of parking lots because I would be fearful of someone like bumping into it, scratching it, like stuff like that. But now I could, people run into it and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, don't worry about it, dude. It's like, this thing's a hunk of junk anyways. But it, like, when we purchase those things and we buy those things, we don't, like, oftentimes we're buying the stress and anxiety that comes along with protecting those things. And it's interesting, like, when I thought like, oh, I wanted a nice car, but with the nice car came like the anxiety of having and keeping a nice car. And it was amazing, like, over the years, how I've seen like this car now, I don't really care about it. It's just like, it is what it is. Like, I try to take care of it. I change this oil, but beyond that, like, it could get wrecked, it could get messed up, it could get bumped, scratched, whatever. And I don't carry that anxiety with me. And a lot of people don't think about that. Like, as they're working towards these nice things, they sometimes don't think about what comes with those nice things. And it's like we're buying all of this worry along with whatever we wanted because of our wealth, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you have to keep it up too.
Yeah.
Because like, let's say the car is nice, but then it starts wearing down, some newer cars come out, like, then you have to keep buying the newest thing and keeping up to date with the newest thing, and you never reach the state of contentness because you're always wanting to one up everybody else around you. Like you said, that really you don't even like care of their opinion for you, but you're trying to gain a good opinion from them of you. But like, even we were playing disc golf the other day and I saw you pull up with your car and I was thinking about it, I was like, man, like, I respect that.
I respect that Nick drives a horrible car.
Yeah, because it shows your identity isn't in what you have.
This is the most backhanded compliment that I think I've ever.
It is. But like, this is a struggle with me, with not necessarily a desire to have a lot of money, but really just like managing money in a way that honors God. Like, in the sense that like I struggle with wanting to buy the coolest clothes and the coolest shoes because I know that it will bring attention to me. And I know that if I have more money, then I can get more things that bring attention to me. But this really brings us to the next question of like, is there a way to want money, to want to be wealthy that isn't sinful? Like, can you be a Christian who maybe is a business person who's making millions of dollars? Like, is that sinful in of itself? And what does it look like to be a Christian who honors God with their money, even though they have a lot of it?
I think it's a great question too, because as mentioned previously, right, money can and should be a tool used to build the kingdom, but it can also be a temptation that takes us off the path God has provided for us, right? So it is something that you can use to construct God's kingdom. And I think a couple of ways, I jotted some things down here. Send missionaries to remote people groups that need the gospel. Like, that was one thing. I had a mentor growing up who he would always do that. Like, if someone felt called to go to Ecuador or Ethiopia or Haiti or wherever they're going, he could just, hey, here's $5,000, go get them.
That's
like,
cool.
Here's $5,000, go enjoy your 3 months over there. Go reach people with the gospel. You could feed like the homeless, the widows. Like, dude, it's for example, I think when like when I was 16 or something, it's like someone bought my mom or paid for a portion of our rent or something like that. But just something crazy, right? That a person who was wealthy and had, extra cash, who was a Christian, said, "Hey, like I want to take care of these. I want to take care of this family. You can provide opportunity for a local church to minister to the community." Like frankly, like we're pastors, and our whole salary and ability to do our job on a full-time basis is built upon people who tithe, who are generous to the church, right? And there's plenty of ways. Like if you're a Christian, you say, "Well, I want to have wealth." Well, there's plenty of ways to use that to build the kingdom. But I think the big thing, if that's you, if you're listening to this podcast, like, yeah, like I want to use my wealth for good. That's really easy to say, right? People say all the time, well, when I get rich, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Well, when I have enough money, I'm going to give to this or do this or be generous in this way. But if you aren't generous with the money that you have right now, you will never be generous whatever future wealth you think you're going to acquire. It's never going to happen. And so if you make $1,000 now and you're not giving away, like you can give away whatever percentage you feel called to do, like the 10%, 12%, 15%, 5%, whatever.
But if
that's right. But if you don't have an intentional committed amount of money that you give away with whatever amount that you earn, you could work part-time, you could just do chores around the house and have 0 jobs and just get paid an allowance or whatever, wherever you get your cash from. But if you don't have a committed amount that you give away right now, why would you kid yourself and act like you're going to give away that when you have make $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year, $50,000 a year? Like you're not going to build that intention in later. So you might as well start now. That's right. You're deceiving yourself.
You know what I think keeps us from wanting to give back too is like there's this mentality of like, well, I worked for this. Like this is mine. Like I put in the work. I'm reaping the benefit of the hard work and commitment and effort and time that I put into this. So like I deserve this money. Like I deserve to get these things for myself. Like I don't owe anybody anything else. You hear this like, oh, I'm self-made, right? But like, is anyone really self-made?
Got it out the mud.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But here's the truth that we have to rest with, that all money is God's money. We're just managers of it. You know, like that's when we tithe, we're not giving God money. We're giving God back what he's already gifted us with. Because no matter what we try to say, if we're self-made, we put in the work, like God has guided us and put us in a place where that was even possible and equipped us with that. And so, you know, knowing that it's God's money, like how are we stewarding that? And I think all the different ways you listed are ways that advances God's kingdom, whereas other ways we can use our money and maybe why we're desiring to be rich, it doesn't advance the kingdom at all. It just advances our own personal kingdom that we try to build up for ourselves.
Oh my gosh, the secret to purposeful living is giving, always. And like the goal of getting rich is a foolish goal in and of itself. Like just to say, oh, I want to be a millionaire for millionaire's sake, or I want to have $100,000 in this account just so I can have $100,000 in my crypto account, or, you know, all these things. Like just to say, oh, I want to be rich just so I can have the dollar amount of being rich. It's a silly goal because you can't take it with you. Something like, just to be super honest with you guys, when I first started at Second Baptist Church, when I first started working as a pastor in general, actually, I think I made maybe below $30,000 a year. And since then, I'm not going to disclose my salary here, but I've since earned more money than that, but my life doesn't feel that different. Mm-hmm. Like you'll figure out a way to spend all that money. And so the idea of well, let me just aim for $1 million for $1 million's sake, or let me just aim for $100,000 for $100,000 sake, or whatever sort of income or whatever sort of net worth that you want to have, that money will figure out a way to go away. It will always get spent. And so you might as well start crafting a plan now of how you want to impact people with that money, because you're never going to make a dollar amount that's enough. You're never going to finally get to the upper echelon of income earnings and say, oh my gosh, I finally make $60,000 a year. Amazing. I'm good. No one's going to get to that point. You're always going to want more. And so you might as well figure out a way to honor God with it right now before it's too late and you have all this money and you're unhappy and you're unfulfilled and you feel like you're not getting anywhere with it. And so I want to go back to your question you asked earlier is, why do you want to be rich? That's what it all comes down to, right? Is the question of, is it wrong to want money? Why do you want money? For what reason? What do you want the money for? Is the reason to build the kingdom, or is it to build your kingdom? Is it to seek your God-given calling, or is it to be comfortable? People say that a lot. How much money do you want? I just want to be comfortable. Comfortable? God's calling no one to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Says who? Like, what person in the Bible can you find that God was like, hey, just be comfortable. Just make 125 grand a year, go buy a $400,000 house, make sure 401k is funded, make sure everything is good in your life. And I'm not saying not to be responsible with your money. We'll do another episode about how to honor God and a budget and all that stuff. I'm not saying to be irresponsible, but you should be radically living and giving for the glory of God with your wealth. People aren't saying, well, I just want enough money to be able to bless people. They're saying, I want enough money to be comfortable. But God is not calling you to be comfortable. He's calling you to be purposeful for his glory. What are your thoughts on that, Trev?
Yeah, I think a good way to gauge whether or not you have that desire in your heart to just be comfortable or to use money for the wrong reasons is to ask yourself, like, would I be okay if all of that was taken away? If I didn't attain that next step up in the salary? Like, would I be okay if all the possessions I had were taken away from like a hurricane or something like that? Or would my life crumble? And I think if you would like truly be honest with yourself and say like, yeah, I'd totally be fine, because like the real value that I have in my life is my relationship with God, my relationships with other people. And if the money was taken away, I still have those things. Then I think you're in a good spot. But if you see like, man, like if I had to struggle, then like my life would just be falling in pieces. And that's just kind of like a misunderstanding of the gospel of like, do you think that a life lived for God is only possible with a large amount of money? Because there's people all over the world who don't have access to a lot of money, who are serving God so faithfully and following him with their whole heart. And so it's like money isn't needed in that sense. So just ask yourself, like, would my life fall apart if I wasn't rich?
Yeah.
You know? And if the answer is yes, then like you need to reevaluate like where your value is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so if you're sitting here and you're like, well, but Nick, I still want money. I still want to, like, I get what you're saying, Nick, and I agree with you. I want to make an impact, not to build my kingdom, but to build God's kingdom and all that stuff. I get it. But what should I do? The best way to be responsible with your money right now is to budget it. So to know where your money is going before you wonder where it went. Number one, budget and give it away in that budget. And so once you budget, you'll figure out how much money you can give away and give it away. 10% is a great place to start, but you can start wherever you want. And this will keep things in priority to the point that you don't get greedy or money hungry. That is what my wife and I work to do every single month, is to set money aside every single month to give away in our budget. And if you do that now, you'll be well on your way to honoring God in your finances. But if you don't, one, you'll probably be irresponsible with money, just regardless of what you're spending it on. You'll just not have as much as you'd like. But number two, yeah, you will be slipping and you will be not really keeping sight of God and all those things. And so, guys, we appreciate you guys listening. And we hope that this episode, once again, provides you guys a ton of value, a ton of clarity, and helps you guys figure out how to handle your finances. So peace out, and we'll see y'all in the next episode.